There we go. Hey, hey. Good evening, everybody. Happy Dr. Martin Luther King Memorial Day. I mean, nobody really says it that long. Happy MLK Day. I have the most special guest in the world on with me. Look at your screen. Can you tell who this person is? That's my mommy. That is my mother joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. So in our last video, my husband and I talked about, we did the last of 3 videos about our trip to Ghana. And then we said that we would be traveling to Atlanta to celebrate my mother's birthday. And my mother's birthday is tomorrow, January 18th. But because of snow coming to our area and to Atlanta, we decided it was safest that we not travel and we just stay put so that we didn't get stuck, because in the South, they don't prepare the roads very well for the snow and they can get iced over and make it hazardous to travel. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to Atlanta and give my mom a hug in person. But I'm still blessed to be able to use technology to see her, and we got to spend some time on Zoom with the family over the weekend. My sisters went over and celebrated and everything, so to make mommy feel special. Today I got the idea that in honor of the MLK holiday, I should talk to my mom and introduce you guys to her. She's an amazing, phenomenal person. I'm going to let her tell you about herself. Mommy, you can share whatever you feel comfortable sharing. She's not a social media person. She's not all over Facebook and Instagram and YouTube or what have you. So I don't want to put any information out there that you might not be comfortable with. You can tell them what you would like for them to know. Our viewers are very kind. We have not had any negative feedback from our YouTube following, thankfully. So hopefully we'll have some subscribers to possibly see that we're on here and they'll jump on. And if anyone has questions, if you're open to having someone to type in and ask you questions, as I see them, I will ask, I'll read them out to you, and you can answer the questions. So, Mommy, just give us a brief bio of yourself. Who are you?
I am Patricia Jones Ramon. I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, in the deep, deep South. And I grew up in Atlanta. I never left Atlanta to really go anywhere else to live. I was educated in Atlanta. I stayed here in Atlanta after I married. And of course, my husband asked me where did I want to live, because he is a traveler, and I chose to live right here in Atlanta. I was born at Grady Hospital, and most Black people my age were born at Grady Hospital. So we say we're Grady babies. So if anybody ever tells you he or she is a Grady baby, that means that person was born in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to public school all the way through my educational experience. I went to Clark College here in the Atlanta University Center in Atlanta. I received a bachelor's of English at Clark. From there, I went to Georgia State University, which at the time was halfway integrated, but not all of the way integrated. I graduated from there, and then I continued my education for an education specialist degree at Atlanta Clark University. I grew up on the northeast side of town, which was called 4th Ward. I attended all of my schools until college in 4th Ward, and I grew up attending Ebenezer Baptist Church.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a very, very interesting life. I learned a lot from my mother concerning segregation and what Blacks could and could not do. But all in all, as I look back over my life, I was very blessed to have wonderful parents, great siblings, a good education. I married a wonderful man 49 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
I have beautiful adult children and wonderful grandchildren. So
So
my life has really been exciting. Um, After I retired some years ago, my husband and I traveled a lot, and I really got to see a lot of the world that I had not seen when I was growing up.
we were talking today about your experience growing up and how you grew up in a community where the children, it was just normal. The children went outside and
Right.
played together, spent time together. Your neighbors were your schoolmates. And part of the
Exactly.
reason your neighbors were your schoolmates was because you grew up in the segregated South and you all went to the same school because you didn't have options otherwise. So tell me about when you went to David T. Howard. If I remember correctly, you have told us that it used to be it was all Black school
Correct.
originally, right? And then integration became the law. So tell me a little bit about your elementary, middle school experience at David T. Howard and some of the, if you can name or remember some of the Atlantans, Native Atlantans who have come into prominence or were active in civil rights that you may have gone to school with because all of the Black kids went to the same school because
Mhm.
you had no choice.
Okay, well, David T. Howard was the high school that I attended, and at that time, students on my side of town attended David T. Howard. Students on the west side of town, Black students, I'm talking about Black students, attended Booker T. Washington High School. These school, Booker T. Washington High School is still a high school, but David T. Howard closed as a high school years ago, decades ago, after all of the children grew up and there were no more children in the communities. So it became a record center for the Atlanta public school system for many years, maybe 20, 30 years. But
Mm-hmm.
now, since there's been so much gentrification and whites have practically taken over that part of town where I grew up, it is now an integrated middle school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And part of David T. Howard's name is still in that middle school, but not the entire name. So it's completely different. There are about as many whites in the school as Blacks.
Well, that's good.
And it seems to be doing great because we live in a different time now.
Mm-hmm.
Students can go to any school they want to go to. When I was going to school, that was not the case. There were no white students in my school.
How
And
old were
another,
you when they integrated?
pardon me,
How old were you when they integrated schools?
um, well, I had left, I had left school when school was integrated. Schools didn't start being integrated until maybe mid 70s, early 80s. And the thing about it, still Black students couldn't just go to another um, school that was white just because they wanted to. They had to apply to those schools and be bused to those schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were picked up at particular stops and taken to those schools and brought back.
Right. Right.
So it was really
Um,
different. But I was beyond that. I was beyond that. By that time, I was in, you know, college. Then I started teaching.
So the year
So
that school segregation became illegal, you were already in your higher level education.
right, right,
Mhm.
exactly. In fact, students were being bused to white schools when I while I was teaching my early years of teaching.
What was do you remember your first year of teaching after you graduated? Do you remember what year that was? Don't worry about it.
It-
It's okay. It's all right. I'm not gonna
yes,
make you.
I do. I
It's,
do.
tell us about choosing which college you would go to and the options available to, let's speak to my family, our family, your siblings. And I just want to say here that my aunt went to Spelman College, the
Mhm.
sister school of Morehouse College, now both universities. Then that's where Dr. Martin Luther King went. This is Dr. King Day, so we got to keep plugging his legacy. And I'm very proud of my family and what they have accomplished. My uncle went to Georgia State University, and he was the first Black student body president at Georgia State University.
Correct.
And my grandmother, for her to accomplish what she did, allowing my aunts and uncles, my aunt and uncles, because my grandmother had two girls and one boy, to go to school at the
Two
time.
girls and two boys.
Oh yeah, did I say one boy?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Uncle.
Your
Paul.
Uncle Prescott and your Uncle Paul. Your
Yeah,
Uncle Prescott chose not to go to college.
military.
He joined the military
Mhm.
because he said he wanted to travel and see the world, and he did.
Definitely did. He definitely did. So when it came time for you and Auntie and my uncles to choose what you would do for your higher education, tell me what kind of conversation was going on in the house. I know it was a financial thing. You told us that, your parents told you that you had to work hard, that it might not be affordable. I know my grandmother said, no, you're going to go. I'm going to do what I need to do to make it happen. If I have to street sweeps and clean floors for the white man and in the white woman's home,
Right.
and she did what she had to do to put you all through school. But was there any fear or hesitation or concern about going to college, or did you always know, well, I'm going to go to an HBCU, so I'm going to be good?
Yes, it was something that we talked about all of the time, but we didn't know at the time that we had these conversations whether or not we would be able to attend college. So what we did was worked very hard in school to be honor students and really fall into that advanced placement category so we could get scholarships to attend college. That's basically what we did. I chose to go to Clark College because my homeroom teacher had graduated from Clark College. When I was in the 7th grade, that teacher had graduated from Clark College.
Mhm.
And I met quite a few adults at Ebenezer Baptist Church where I was a member to go to Clark College because they did.
So did you
All
not
right.
go to Spelman like Auntie because you didn't want to go to an all-girl school?
I wanted to go to Clark College because so many people had talked to me about Clark College.
Mhm.
And so that's exactly what I did. I registered for Clark College. I got a few scholarships to go there. However, before I graduated, I had to work every summer to pay my tuition. I did not mind doing that because I was determined I was going to be a college graduate.
That's right.
So I worked every summer. I babysat on the weekends, and I did little things like that. And I did something that you cannot get young people to do today. And
What?
that is if someone in my family or church wanted me to babysit and do household chores while I did it, like wash, iron, things like that, I would do it. You can't get teenagers to do that today. So
Yeah.
I
If
was
you want the money.
determined that I would graduate from college. Um, my last 2 summers before I graduated, my aunt in Connecticut sent for me, and I worked on jobs called
So,
uh no, they were
were you a nanny?
no, I can't remember the name exactly, but I would work for them during the week and have one day off and every other Sunday.
What did your job entail? I remember you telling us
I would, well,
no.
the first summer I went, I was a babysitter for a 2-year-old girl.
Mm,
The parents lived in um, Norfolk, Connecticut, I believe.
okay.
And they were very, very nice. They were good. These were um, Jewish people. They were very good to me. I had never been out of the state of Georgia. It was
Mhm.
my first time seeing an ocean, and they were so good to me that um, when I got ready to go to college, they provided me with my wardrobe for the entire year.
Oh, that's awesome. You
The
never told me.
next summer I went, I worked for an older couple who had a daughter who had become disabled after um, a horse accident. She was a good horse rider, but something happened to her, and she was paralyzed from the waist down. So
Mm.
my job was to be her companion, and I enjoyed those people too. And they paid me well, and I this these are the ways that I made my money to get through college too.
Mhm. Mhm. Tell me, you mentioned growing up, going to Ebenezer and having an awesome experience there, and everyone knows well that Dr. Martin Luther King grew up there. His father was the
Right.
pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, and he kind of got his speaking chops, I guess. There, I don't know. You tell us if he had some opportunities to speak sometimes to the congregation. How much older was he than you, Dr. King?
Well, he was a full adult. I was a teenager
Mm-hmm.
at the time when he started with the civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
He always talked about um, making the world a better world. He really believed that if people would just try to live with one another, treat each other fairly, that things would change. But things were really to the point where everything was segregated. Churches, schools, entertainment places, theaters, department stores, everything.
Do you have vivid
And
memories of seeing white only signs or colored only, or you have to go in this door, or you have to sit here, or you can't come in at a certain time, or maybe you're in line and a white person comes and you have to let them go? Do you have any of those recollections?
yes, I do. In fact, that's all we saw. When we went to department stores, there would be signs on doors for coloreds to enter. Coloreds had to enter a different door than whites. And usually those doors would be on the side or in the back.
Do you
The
remember how that
same,
made you feel at the time? Was it just like, this is just, I've grown up, this is what I know, so I'm used to it, I'm just going this way? Or do you remember feeling any?
I never got used to that. I felt like my parents raised their children to feel that we were just as good as anybody else. We could do anything we put our mind to. They were very encouraging. My parents built self-esteem in their children. We didn't feel that we were any less than anybody else. We just knew because of where we lived and the laws and the way people were, that we had to try to get beyond that. So that's why we tried so hard. Personally, I didn't like it. I felt that it was unfair. I felt that anybody who could walk, talk, and look like a human being was no different from me, and that I should have the same opportunity. So no, I did not like it. But I had to tolerate it. I had to live like that. And actually, when I went to college, I wanted to be an interior decorator. And I tried to do that, but I found out the only schools that I could attend would be North, basically in New York. And my parents didn't have the money for that. So I ended up going to Clark College, majoring in education.
And using your creativity to sew. So I guess that's where I get it from.
Exactly. Because I learned how to sew to the point where I would sew an outfit to wear to work the next day.
I wish I were that good. You know what? I should have started earlier before I had these children. So I could have some
Well,
time.
that's when I did. Before I got married, I was working, and
I started when
I could leave my sewing machine up, didn't have to move it, cut out my patterns,
your husband didn't like where it was.
make my clothes, and they were very nice. I have to admit that, because I
Yes.
always get like nice things.
Some pictures to just pop up here so people could see some of the coordinated outfits that you made. Mommy, it took me all day yesterday to make a pencil skirt.
Really?
Yes, I had 3
Well,
children, so you know.
that's not bad. You just
That's a lot of
continue
breaks.
you just continue until you get it completed.
I was determined I was gonna finish that skirt. I started about 12, and this time I fully lined it. So, you know, whenever we travel, I love African fabric. And before we even started
Right.
thinking about moving to Africa, you know how I am. I like colorful,
I know.
vibrant clothing that have a personality. So I was very drawn to African prints many years ago, and started kind of collecting fabric or what have you, and then taught myself to sew because I wanted to make them into the fabric that I had into skirts or what have you. So, but yesterday was the first time I think I fully lined anything because I just wanted to fit better. And I posted a picture of my skirt on Instagram and my other page. I'm so proud that at
Well, at
least
least you accomplished that.
I
So
did.
that's
The only thing I need to do now is put in the zipper, but other than that, but I said,
good for
you know,
you.
I
Good
made
for
a
you.
matching mask to go with it too, out of the African fabric. So that's where I get mine. And you know, Mommy, you know, I like to decorate as well. I don't think I remember you ever saying. I think vaguely I might remember you telling us before that you wanted to be an interior decorator, because I like that too. And you know, Renee,
Yeah.
my sister, likes to decorate.
Right.
Interiors.
That was where my ambition was. I really wanted to do that. It was exciting to me. But of course, your generation had more options. There were many occupations you could go into, but there were only a few that people could try to accomplish when I was in college. And for the most part, that was in the medical field, in the educational field. And when I graduated from college, Black students were beginning to go into a few other fields, but for the most part, it was education.
Tell me about the climate, the socio-political climate of Atlanta in your formative years, your high school, college years, or what have you. My grandfather lived just a few blocks over from the birth home of Dr. King. And I remember growing up when we would visit, my sisters and I, every once in a while, my mom would let us walk the few blocks. It wasn't very far at all, like literally almost behind my grandfather's house. And I remember us going in there and just standing on the steps, and it felt like you were at almost like the Mecca. And I remember seeing the swing on the porch. I used to want to go, but you can't because railed off and, and guarded and protected because it is a national landmark. But I want to know what it felt like when you were growing up in the Sweet Auburn area and in the Edgewood area, the downtown Decatur, where the African-American communities were. What was the pulse, the sensation, and the climate amongst the people around that time?
Well, for me, it was very special because I was surrounded by people who wanted to be somebody, people who wanted to accomplish things. So when I was younger, I was a Girl Scout, and that really helped me. And we would have Girl Scout meetings at a church on Auburn Avenue, and we walked everywhere we went. At that time, as a young person, I was living in Grady Homes, and we would walk from Grady Homes to Girl Scout meetings on Auburn Avenue, which might have been about 5 miles, but we didn't even think about it because we always walked in groups. We were from the same community and we would go places together. We walked to church. We had one car. When I was growing up, families had one car. And for the most part, the daddy had that car most of the time. But on the weekends, another blessing that my family had, my daddy would take us somewhere every weekend. We would drive from Atlanta to Athens, Georgia. We would drive from Atlanta to Gainesville, Georgia. We would drive from Atlanta to Stone Mountain. He would take us to Stone Mountain Park. He would take us to what?
Stone Mountain Park. We'll talk. We'll tell you why I said uh-oh in a little bit. Go ahead and finish.
Okay. He would take us places every weekend. So we felt privileged, and we just got to see a lot of things and do a lot of things. Actually, we knew we were poor, but we didn't dwell on that because we did so many other things. Our parents tried to expose us as much as they could. And another thing about my family, it was such, I guess, a privilege to be in a family that had legacies that we were very proud of. My grandmother's siblings made big accomplishments. I had a great uncle who was the first Black policeman in Athens, Georgia. I had a great auntie who housed Hamilton E. Holmes, who became a Black doctor in Atlanta, but he integrated the University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia.
So he was the first Black student at the University of Georgia in
Athens. And a female named Charlene Hunter. Pardon me?
Who was he to you again?
He was just a student that went to school and couldn't live in a dormitory, but my great aunt housed him because he could not live in a dormitory, and he lived with my great aunt. And that gave me an opportunity to see him.
Your great aunt, you also mentioned that, was she was one of the only owners of, I guess,
a little restaurant on the main street in Athens, Georgia.
Which was
extremely segregated. Killian. Her name was Alice Killian. And she and her family had a little eatery where Black people in Athens would go to eat. They did a pretty good job with that. But the most exciting thing was that the first Black male that went to the University of Georgia lived with my grandmother's sister. That was really exciting. And like I said, her son was one of the first, was the first Black policeman in Athens. And I had a great auntie in Gainesville, Georgia, that was called the chicken capital of the South. That's where most of the chickens came from, chicken farms and everything. I
Mm,
had a great aunt there who taught all of the students. They just had one large school, whites and blacks. And she was a social studies teacher. She taught all of them. And when that particular aunt died, her funeral was one of the biggest funerals in Gainesville, Georgia. I
mm.
mean, there was an entourage of the mayor of Gainesville, and she had done a lot for that city. And I was very proud of that. And
That was
I
Aunt
just
Maddie.
saw,
Was that Aunt Maddie Moon?
yes, Maddie Moon.
I remember
Yes, that's
visiting
right.
her when I was really little.
And then I had another great aunt. And I mean, they grew up in some very, very, very terrible times. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, when my mother was a little girl, she used to see the KKK march on the main street.
In
And her,
Gainesville.
yes, and her aunties just got through all of that. And
Mm.
they were able to take care of themselves and do great things. But one of her aunts had a boarding house because Black people couldn't go to hotels. So my aunt and her husband built this boarding house. And when my sister and I were young, we would go to Gainesville and help her clean the room because her house had 4 floors. And that was amazing to us. And my
Mm.
great aunt would get up and cook for these men who worked there in the chicken factory. And she had a farm. And that was something we looked forward to as well. And
Mm.
she was well known for having this boarding house in Gainesville. So we
Yeah.
just had a lot of positive things to influence us and my family to make us want to be better than what people wanted us to be.
Mm-hmm. Or try to suppress and yeah,
Exactly.
that is very vivid in my memory too. And I know that it's something that you and Mama Reen, that's what we call my grandmother, made sure that we were very well aware of. I remember you all writing the family tree and
Right.
documenting some of the significant contributions that our family has made to the African
Mhm.
American community there in the South. And I'm so proud of you all and my family. When I see Real Housewives of Atlanta, I say, no. They need to film my mom and my sisters and my aunts and my cousins. Those are real housewives of Atlanta, natives born and
Absolutely.
raised in Atlanta who are classy and dignified and intelligent and articulate and eloquent and all of the good positive things that you want your children to look up to, not this stuff that's on reality television. I'm sorry. Growing up in Atlanta, I cannot say that I'm extraordinarily proud of what I see or have seen when I did used to watch Real Housewives of Atlanta. These are the
Right.
Real
Right.
Housewives, the woman that my mother just talked about. That's the real live people living day-to-day lives, working hard to make it through oppression and suppression and consternation and challenges and difficulties at every turn. I mean, to be able to see the Ku Klux Klan walking
Absolutely.
down the street in front of your house, exerting their authority and violence and evil right there in your face is,
Hmm.
I mean, that is definitely something to live through. And I know you
Absolutely.
said when we talked today that, it made you feel disgust. We're going to use that
Yes.
word,
Yes.
and angst
And
and frustration.
disdain.
And yeah, my mother is an educator of English and language arts, so she can find the words. Yes, for the others of the other persuasion, and
Right.
so I think that's where I get some of my fight back from. Reclaiming our identity has a lot to do with the fact that I will not accept the narrative that
Right.
has been whitewashed and stripped to take out all of the amazing and all of the strength and all of the phenomenal that is Blackness and who we are and where we come from. And this is where I get it from. I get it from my mama. You know, that hashtag, I truly do get it from my mama. She expressed, Mommy, I don't know how much you want to go into this, but I wonder if anybody out there knows if there it was like, oh no, I'll say this. When we spoke today, I heard something significant that you said when you said that there were those who were out fighting the fight and marching and sitting at the sit-ins and sitting doing the bus boycotts and going to Woolworths and demanding to be serviced, even though they were in a segregated retail space or what have you.
Right.
There were those fighting that fight, and then there were the Black Panthers that were extremely violent. So there was the nonviolent movement and the extremely violent movement. And I asked you, well, there was really no middle ground, you know, where you could feel comfortable fitting in. And you said that your parents would definitely have not let you go to the North and Northeast, where the Black Panthers were building up their following. And you knew that because of your experience and your family's experience and their legacy, that your mouth would not be able to have kept shut during a non-violent attack. They would not have been burning any cigarettes on you and expecting you not to say anything. Not Pat Ramon. That's what. So that
I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I just couldn't do it.
So you said instead you stayed behind and you supported. And there is a way that there are individuals who supported the movement in other ways. And one of yours was taking care of the leader's children, babysitting his children at home. So while he had to be away, they had somebody that they could trust, you know, to care for them.
Right. In fact, my family became very close to the King family. My siblings and I would go to the home of Martin Luther King Jr.'s father that we call Daddy King. And they were really instrumental in our lives, and they were very encouraging to us. And we saw that in spite of everything that was going on between the races, they were very positive, and they wanted us to be successful, and they were good mentors to us. And I mean, that was a privilege, and we will never forget it. And we just know that because of our parents, because of the Kings and other people who were interested in us, we made it. And of course, with the help of God.
Absolutely.
You know, we knew nothing could happen without God. And that's another thing that we were very thankful for. We were in a Christian family, and our parents always taught us to depend on God to help us, because without God, we could not do anything. And that's exactly what we did. So,
Amen.
all in all, we had, under the circumstances around us that we were acquainted with, we had a decent life. We had an opportunity.
Blessed life.
Yes, it is. So, you know, I'm very grateful for the parents that I was born to, because you cannot choose your parents, but God gave us to good parents. And especially my mother, she was a brilliant woman. She was a young mother, but to me, she was born before her time. And she always gave us good advice. And we tried to please her. We had our own goals, but we knew our mother wanted the best for us, so we tried to please her as well. There was one thing I didn't do to accomplish that. I did not learn how to cook. My sister did, but I didn't. I did not want to cook.
Well, we didn't die. You fed 3 little girls, and we lived, we survived, we did all right. And we always say you're not a bad cook. You've always been able to put together a good meal. That, you know, it was nutritious.
Right. I wasn't I don't think I could be classified as a cook, but I know how to prepare meals.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Yes, you prepared some good meals. You did, mommy. You did all right. Kudos to you.
I tried, because I wanted the best for you all too.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Appreciate
before I became a mother, I prayed to God that whatever happened, if I became a mother, that I would be a good mother. And I wanted God to help me be a good mother. And he did.
Yes, he did. The best. The very best. Do you still have the book that Dr. King autographed for you? Put your name in and everything?
I do. Not only do I have that book, I have a book that an associate pastor wrote. He was a young white guy. He worked with the youth in the church. And one day, maybe about 10 years ago, a girlfriend of mine called me and said, Pat, your picture is in Pastor so-and-so's book. I said, what? He put my picture in there without getting my permission. At any rate,
That's the first thought you
at
would.
any rate, it's a picture of me, my sister, and my baby brother. We had our baby brother with us, and we were at a youth activity at Ebenezer. So I have that. I have a book that Mrs. King wrote, Coretta Scott King. I have all of those things. I have a picture of me at 10 years old getting a certificate at a library on Auburn Avenue for reading the most books for that summer. I was just 10 years old. And my mother,
to Kaya. That's the one you gave to Kaya when she was reading all these
yes,
books and getting awards for reading the most books. Kaya's
and my mother was so proud that the picture was in the Atlanta Daily World,
of course
owned by Black people, that she kept all of that stuff and passed it on to us, and we continue to have those things.
Yes, that's special stuff. Hold on to that.
Yes, yes,
I
that's
want to
history.
there are some people who are saying hello to you. Black by popular demand said, hello, mama.
Hello.
And, hello. And Christy Carter says she's so excited for the dialogue. Thanks for sharing. And she's glad that, oh no, she said, cook versus prepare. Yes, for the win. That is winning. She made sure we were still fed. There's a question that Christy Carter has as well. Any advice you can share to the many of us who want to do more to move the dream of MLK in today's times? You do, Mama, you do a lot. You do a lot. We haven't even scratched the surface. And so I'm going to set you up to answer this question. Dr. King, people put him in a box.
Right.
And that box is that he was only fighting for equality and for the rights of Blacks. But Dr. King
fought everybody's right.
For the poor, the underserved, the underprivileged. He inspired the Poor People's Campaign. He wanted everyone to be treated as humans and as citizens of the United States, which was why the 14th Amendment came about. And he fought for everybody. He didn't want us to be, of course, he fought primarily on our behalf because we were the ones being most oppressed at the time.
Exactly.
But everyone. And I think you embody that a lot with your generosity and your spirit of selflessness. I mean, you give yourself away in so many different aspects and capacities. So to answer Christy's question about what we can do to move the needle forward and to progress the dream of MLK in today's times, how would you answer that? And then you can give some examples of practical things that you do that honor his
I would say things that practically anybody can do to help other people and to help them feel loved and help them feel that they are are just as good as anybody else, or like human beings, is give of yourself. Treat other people like you want to be treated. Reach out to people, encourage people, do things to make people happy. Some people are so selfish that they only think of themselves. For example, during this pandemic, you could encourage older people. Now, it used to be, of course, before the pandemic, you could go to assisted living homes, nursing homes,
You all took us to
places
nursing
like
homes
that.
and high
You,
rises. Little girls
yes,
holding our
you could
parents'
make
kids, bridges,
lunches
nursing homes,
and take lunches to homeless people,
under the
give
bridges.
clothes to homeless people. Like now, I work with the refugees here in
Talk
the,
about that, Mommy. Talk about that.
okay, there is an area not too far from Atlanta, about 35 minutes from where I live, in Clarkston, Georgia, that is called a sanctuary city. And when people come here from countries where they're being oppressed and killed and tortured and treated like anything you would never want to be treated like, a lot of them escape wars and what have you.
Mhm.
They are sent to the sanctuary city of Clarkston. So for almost 5 years, I have been working with those people, helping them the very best that I can, encouraging them, um, collecting food for them, clothes. I give them
Furniture.
money, furniture, you name it, A to Z, A to
Okay.
Z.
So we want to be very practical because this is a great question and this could give some people some really good ideas. First, tell us how you even came to encounter this opportunity, or did you create it yourself because you talked to somebody you heard and you felt, so moved and compelled by the need, you just went to visit, and then in that visit you saw some need and you decided to address it. And then some of the very practical things that you have done, like school scholarships, uniforms, things like
Right.
that, so people can know what kind of things. So first, how did you even come to experience, helping and contributing to this community? What made you even find out about it and
Okay.
want to do something? And then name some of the things that you've done, and that might be helpful so that people can.
Well, the first thing I did was prayed about it and asked God to open up doors where I could help other people. And to be honest with you, you and your sisters encouraged me when I would help you all make sandwiches and lunches to carry to homeless people downtown Atlanta.
Oh, that's when the
I
seed
just
was planted.
I
Amen.
just thought that was fantastic, that you would even care about people to get them lunches and go talk with them. And, I became involved with you all with that. That was an encouragement. And then your youngest sister started the project of blankets and bags, where she would have people to donate blankets and make bag lunches to take to people who had no food. And I just asked the Lord to open doors for me to do things like that. And sometimes he would put in my head, well, in your spare time, just reach out to people, call them on the phone, tell them you're thinking about them, ask them how they're doing, things like that. And I like to talk on the phone anyway, so that wasn't a problem for me.
Y'all, I don't think there's anybody else out there that can talk on the phone as much as my mom. Let me tell you this quick story. When we would get in trouble, because when something would happen, like, the teacher sent a note home or communicated with my mother that I was talking too much in class, because I like to talk to, you see where I get it from. If something happened and we were getting in trouble, we would literally pray and talk to each other. My sisters, I hope somebody calls mommy when we get home, because you say, you're gonna get a whipping when you get home. I'm gonna take care of this. You're behind is mine. Whatever. I grew up with a black mama, y'all. They don't play for real. And so she would tell us, when we get home, it's on. You're gonna get it. So we would sit in the car like, I hope Miss Richardson calls mommy, one of her best friends. Oh, I hope Miss Gay calls. I hope somebody calls mommy, because if she gets on the phone, then she'll forget. And mommy would get on the phone and talk to, or my grandmother, if she was talking to her mama, talk and talk and talk, and we would get out of a whipping that night. Yeah. So you like to talk. So God used that gift.
He used that, and I would I would bring sick and shut in lists from the bulletin at church. I would bring that home. I would go down that list and call people who were sick. This is Pat Ramon, just calling to check on you to see how you're doing. Do you need anything? I didn't have to leave my house to do that.
Yeah.
And one of my friends just told me the other day, well, she asked me, how do you remember people's birthdays? Because when I know a birthday is coming up, I send a card. If I can, I put a little gift in it, a gift card or some money. I mean,
The
things
person
that I
asking this
know.
question is like that too. She remembers she remembers birthdays, and she always wants to do
Yes,
something special.
yes. Things that I know will make people, what make me happy, I try to do to make them happy.
Well, get
And
back to the refugee. Tell us about
okay,
that.
well, the way that came about, I have a friend who would come to me sometimes and say, Pat, I know you're a very generous person. I know this lady who needs some money just to be able to ride the bus. And I know how you are. Do you mind helping me get her a card to ride the bus for the rest of the year or whatever? She knew I wouldn't mind doing that. So I would do things like that. And she came to me and told me that she had found out about this refugee camp, and she was going to collect some clothes and take them over there. And she asked me if I would go over there with her. And I did. Well, when I got over there and I saw people from other countries sleeping on the floor, having slumlords, not having adequate clothing
Or
for them
heat,
and their children,
or
heat,
air conditioning.
air in the summer, heat in the winter. I mean, they would leave countries where they practically couldn't even live and come to our country that's supposed to be the land of milk and honey and be treated just as badly. So my heart just went out to them, and I found myself making up a list to tell people what those people needed. And I got so many calls and so many people would accommodate me that my garage almost became a warehouse.
I remember.
Where I would get all of these things. I mean, anything from A to Z. And then your wonderful daddy would help me load those things up in his truck and carry the things to those people.
And that he had that trailer, that hitch at that time too.
Yes,
Still do
yes.
it. But there was a time when he had a trailer hitch and he would load, oh my goodness, so many things. Like I said, even furniture. If you found out any need, whatever it was, you would try to meet the need yourself or get support for someone else to meet that need, from tuition to a sofa, socks, uniform,
Exactly.
whatever it was, groceries for the family. And I think that that's a very practical way. So,
and another thing we did, there was a woman who wanted to try to help educate some of the children. So she sent them to a parochial school. And one time she just called me and asked if I would come help get the sizes of the children feet, so another organization could buy them some shoes. And I did that, and I would do little things she would call and ask me to do to help them. And it's all been a blessing. In fact, the lady that takes in all of the donations is from South Africa. She was almost killed, and she had cancer this year, and now she's doing well, and I thank God for that. But when I first met her, and we were talking. She told me her birthday was coming up. And so we got to talking. She said she had never had a birthday party, nothing. Nobody ever recognized her birthday. So, I tried to make that good for her.
I know you did.
Yes. So
know
for
you
the
did.
past 4 years, I have been treating her on her birthday and doing special things for her. And she just called me a couple of days ago, told me she had surgery on her left foot. And we prayed together and she's doing okay. And I mean, I just become attached to people who really need to be encouraged.
Mhm.
And
You
but
see
I
the
always
need in
pray
it.
about things first. And you have to be careful what you pray about, because sometimes you pray for things you don't really need, and the Lord will make them happen anyway,
Mhm.
allow them to happen. So I try to pray for positive things.
Amen. Amen. Well, is there anything else that you want to share, Mommy, before we end our interview? Any words of wisdom for those of us going through life here in America as African American women, if you want to speak to that specifically, or
Yes.
mothers, whatever. Yeah, any last words?
Well, I would just like to say that we're all God's creatures. God loves us. He created all of us, and he has a plan and a purpose for our lives. And I know, especially now, a lot of people are depressed and despondent. They
Mhm.
feel hopeless. They feel helpless. They feel like, why am I even here? My parents went through this, that, and the other. I'm going through this, that, and the other. But my advice to you is never give up. Just never give up. Depend on God. He never leaves us. We leave him. And a lot of people have asked in times of trouble and tragedies. Well, for example, 9/11. Where was God when this happened? Where was he? Where was God when I lost my entire family? God was right there. And you need to remember, God sent his son, his only begotten son, for your life, to save your life. And hopefully you will really concentrate on that. God gave his only begotten son for me. That's because God loves you. He wants you to live in that eternal home with him, where you will see no more troubles.
Mhm.
And another thing, concentrate on treating people the way you want to be treated. Try not to be selfish,
Mhm.
because you can be the richest person in the world, but you don't have to stay like that. Just like you got what you got, you can lose it.
Right. That's right. Preach, Mommy.
Oh, yes. Don't get me started.
You already did. Well, thank you so much for taking this time with us. I appreciate it. I know it's not your big thing to be on social media platforms and to be visible to the world. So this was a sacrifice that you made for me, but I know so many other people will be enlightened by it, and hopefully someone will be blessed by the words that you just ended us on. We're leaving on a very, very, very high note. The best mommy
Absolutely.
in the world. Thank you for letting me interview you.
Well, it was my pleasure.
All right. Good night, mommy. Get some
Good
rest.
night. Good night to
Bye, everyone.
everybody.
All right.
Have a wonderful night, a blessed night.